Title: My 32M wife, 31F, spent 6 months convincing me I was losing my mind. The reality was much worse. I never meant to become a detective in my own home. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have told you that Chloe and I were the standard boring American success story. We'd been married for 4 years. She was an HR director, and I managed regional logistics. We were saving for a house with a bigger yard. The nightmare didn't start with lipstick on a collar or a text message popping up on a locked screen. Chloe is too smart for that. It started with a coffee cup. It was a Tuesday in early March. Chloe had texted me that she was slammed at her downtown office and would be working through lunch. But when I got in her car that evening to move it out of the driveway, there was an empty cup from a hyper-local, independent roaster in the cup holder. The cafe was located in a suburb 45 minutes north of her office. I didn't immediately suspect cheating. I just thought it was odd. That night, while we were watching TV, I asked, "Hey, did you end up driving up to Northbrook today?" She didn't flinch. Her eyes didn't dart. She just kept looking at the screen, casually wrapping a blanket around her legs. "No, why?" "Just saw the coffee cup in your car." She blinked, then let out a soft, exasperated sigh. "Oh my God, Sarah left that in there this weekend. I told her to take her trash out. Remind me to bill my sister for a car detail." It was a perfect, seamless lie. It made complete sense. I felt a tiny twinge of guilt for even asking, and I let it go. But 3 weeks later, the exact same cup was in her car again. And this time, the receipt was tucked under it. Time-stamped Tuesday, 1:15 p.m. I didn't say anything. But that night, staring at the ceiling, while she slept peacefully next to me, a cold, heavy knot formed in my stomach. I had to know what was happening next. Update 1. The descent. For a month, I tried to figure it out without invading her privacy. I looked for changes in her routine. She started taking phone calls in the guest bedroom, closing the door because of the dog barking. She changed her phone passcode, claiming her company's IT department mandated a new security policy for HR executives. I was going crazy. I stopped sleeping. I'd lie awake until 4 a.m., my heart pounding in my ears, running through scenarios. At work, I was missing deadlines. I forgot to submit a major vendor contract because I spent 3 hours staring at our shared phone bill, looking for unrecognized numbers. I found one. A number she texted frequently during the middle of the day. I fell down a rabbit hole. I routed my connection through a German-based proxy and used Dolphin NT to anonymously scrape the number's public records without triggering any localized IP alerts. The number belonged to Liam, a junior recruiter at her firm. He was 25, attractive, and single. I was devastated, but I felt justified. I had caught her. I confronted her that Friday. My hands were shaking. I asked her point blank if something was going on with Liam. Chloe looked at me, her expression dropping into pure shock, followed by a look of deep, profound pity. "Mark," she started, her voice breaking. "Liam. Liam is transitioning. He's been dealing with severe depression, and as HR, I'm the only one he trusts to help him navigate the healthcare paperwork without the rest of the company finding out before he's ready. I promised him total confidentiality." She covered her face with her hands and started to cry. "I can't believe you would track my phone. I can't believe you think so little of me." I broke. I felt like a monster. I spent the next 2 days apologizing, crying, and begging for her forgiveness. I scheduled a doctor's appointment and got a prescription for anti-anxiety medication, genuinely believing I was having a mental breakdown. To prove her commitment, Chloe surprised me 2 weeks later with a brand new iPhone 16 Pro I'd been saving up for and booked us a romantic weekend in a cabin. We drank wine, we laughed, we reconnected. For a week, I felt like the luckiest guy in the world. Then, I plugged my new phone into my laptop to sync my old backups. A glitch in her family-shared Apple ID pushed a cached Safari search history to my device. 3 days before our romantic trip, she had searched how to transfer USDT on TRC20 anonymously. I didn't even know she knew what cryptocurrency was. Update 2. The red herrings. I didn't confront her. The guilt from the Liam situation had taught me a brutal lesson. Chloe was 10 steps ahead of me, and if I swung and missed again, she would leave me, citing my paranoia. I had to work in the shadows. I knew logistics, so I treated my wife like a missing shipment. I dug into our finances. I couldn't find any missing money in our main accounts. But I did find an irregularity in the tax documents sent by Greg, my best friend from college and our financial advisor. He had filed an extension for a secondary investment portfolio I rarely checked. I called Greg. "Hey man," Greg said, sounding perfectly normal. "Yeah, the extension was just a clerical thing. Market's been weird. Nothing to worry about. How's Chloe?" "She's good," I lied, my voice tight. I hung up, exhausted. I was chasing ghosts. Maybe she was buying crypto as a surprise investment. Maybe I really was just losing my mind. I lost my appetite entirely. I was dropping weight. I'd look at her across the dinner table and feel a terrifying disconnect, like the woman I married had been replaced by a stranger. Then came the slip-up. It wasn't a careless mistake, it was just incredibly bad luck. We were at a neighborhood block party. Chloe was 3 glasses of wine in, talking to our neighbor, a real estate agent. I walked up behind her just in time to hear the neighbor say, "So, how's the condo up in Northbrook? Did the closing go smoothly?" Chloe froze. The silence stretched for 3 agonizing seconds. "Oh," Chloe said, her voice dropping an octave, a nervous laugh escaping. We decided against it. Market's too crazy." She turned and saw me. The blood drained from her face. Northbrook, the same suburb from the coffee cup. Update 3, the reality. The drive home was suffocating. "So," I said, gripping the steering wheel, "a condo in Northbrook?" "Mark, please," she sighed, rubbing her temples. "I was going to surprise you. It was a foreclosure. I was looking into it as a rental property for passive income. But the inspection failed, so I dropped it." "With what money, Chloe? We don't have enough liquid cash for a down payment." "I was going to take a loan from my 401k, she snapped, crossing her arms. "Look, I'm exhausted. Can we not do one of your interrogations tonight?" She was good, but she wasn't perfect. I stayed awake until she was deeply asleep, took her keys, and went out to her car. I didn't look for a phone. I looked for a garage door opener. I found a small, unmarked generic clicker tucked behind the glove box manual. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I drove to Northbrook. I spent 6 hours driving through every newly built condo complex, clicking the button at every security gate. At 4:15 p.m., the gate to a luxury complex called The Pines clicked open. I parked down the street. I waited. At 6:30 p.m., my wife's SUV pulled in. A few minutes later, another car pulled in beside hers. It wasn't Liam. It wasn't a co-worker. It was Greg, my financial advisor, my college roommate, the guy who had stood next to me at the altar. I sat in my car, hyperventilating. I threw up out the driver's side door. They weren't just having an affair. Greg was managing our money. If they were buying property together, they were using my money. I realized what the crypto search was for. Greg was helping her siphon our joint assets, converting them to USDT on the TRC20 network, which is nearly impossible to trace, and funneling it into an LLC to buy the condo. Update 4. The unforgettable twist. I didn't kick the door down. I drove home, completely numb. I felt like I had died in that car. I spent the next 3 weeks building an airtight legal case. I hired a forensic accountant and a quiet, brutal divorce attorney. We subpoenaed Greg's broker-dealer firm directly, completely bypassing him. We found the paper trail. They had drained $85,000 from my stock options, but my lawyer found something else, something that broke my brain. We were sitting in his office, reviewing the LLC documents for the Northbrook condo. "Mark," my lawyer said gently, "the LLC wasn't formed 3 months ago when the money started moving. It was formed 6 years ago." I stared at him. "That makes no sense. Chloe and I met 5.5 years ago. Greg introduced us." The silence in the room was deafening. My lawyer slid a stack of printed emails across the desk. They were retrieved from Greg's subpoenaed corporate servers. I read them again. The room started to spin. Chloe didn't meet Greg through me. Chloe and Greg had been together for almost 8 years. Greg knew I was due to inherit a substantial trust from my grandfather when I turned 30, on top of my high-earning logistics career. He couldn't access it legally as my broker without red flags. So he orchestrated a meet-cute. He introduced me to his friend Chloe. For nearly 6 years, my entire relationship, every date, every anniversary, our wedding, every I love you, was a calculated, long-term financial grift. They had played the long game, waiting for my trust to vest, waiting for my stock options to mature, slowly siphoning the money out while playing the perfect wife and the perfect best friend. The affair wasn't the betrayal. The marriage was the betrayal. Final update, the ghost. There was no cinematic confrontation. On a Tuesday, Chloe left for work. While she was gone, I had movers empty my half of the house. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter next to a printed copy of the LLC incorporation papers from 6 years ago. At 2 p.m. she was served with divorce papers at her office. At the same time, Greg was served with a federal civil suit for fiduciary fraud, and his employer locked him out of the building. I blocked her on everything. The legal battle took almost a year. It was messy, exhausting, and incredibly expensive. Greg didn't go to prison. Financial crimes are notoriously hard to prosecute criminally if the waters are muddied enough. But he was stripped of his licenses, fired, and financially ruined by the settlements. Chloe tried to argue that the funds were marital assets. The judge destroyed her. Because of the proven premeditated fraud, I got the house, the remaining accounts, and she was ordered to cover my legal fees. I hadn't spoken a single word to her in 11 months. Then last week, we had to meet at a notary's office to sign the final quitclaim deed on the house. I walked in. She was sitting at the table. She looked tired. The meticulously, perfectly styled HR director was gone. Her hair was pulled back. She had dark circles under her eyes, and she looked small. We signed the papers in silence. The notary stamped them and left the room to make copies. It was just the two of us. The air was thick and heavy. She looked at her hands, fidgeting with a pen. "Mark," she started, her voice barely a whisper. "I know you hate me, and I know what it looks like, but it didn't start out that way. I swear to God, we just got in too deep, and then I actually did care about you. Towards the end, I really did." I looked at her. I didn't feel anger anymore. I just felt a profound echoing emptiness. I was looking at a ghost, a person who had never actually existed. "Did you?" I asked quietly. "Yes," she said, looking up, a desperate flash of hope in her eyes, wanting me to absolve her. "I did." I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and picked up my keys. "The crazy thing is, Chloe," I said, my voice completely flat, "even now you're still lying." I walked out the door. I didn't look back.